November 2022, number 4. Number 4, November 2022. And the question says, you have been asked to write a proposal concerning the establishment of a sickle cell center. What are the contents of the proposal? What other things will you do? How will you standardize it to meet with the 21st century demand? A proposal is a 2 to 5 page document that seeks to address key questions surrounding a major project. And in this case, is the establishment of a sickle cell center in my facility. And it is to describe the project scope and to establish and why those objectives are important. Therefore, the content of the proposal will include needs assessment, minimum standard required for the establishment of the facility, and availability of the minimum requirements, and feedback to the authorities involved. I will take each one. For the need assessment, I will write about the gap between the current state and the desired outcome. And in the process, in that process, I will determine the priority. I will also identify the burden of sickle cell disease among other hematological conditions and the need to separate sickle cell clinic from other hematological conditions. I will define the solutions, the deliverables, what we can achieve, probably running 2 clinics in a week, and I will outline the plan and the approach and the budget, including the revenue budget, the capital budget to sustain the facility. So then the minimum requirements, under this, I will discuss it using the code 4S, the staff, the stuff, the space, and the system needed. The staff needed will include specialists, social worker, patient coordinator, pharmacists, dedicated nurses, physical therapists, mental health specialists, and psychologists. And if need required, I will provide the exact number needed. The staff needed to establish the sickle cell facility will include side lab, at least that where we can do urgent PCV, urinalysis, and erythrourea and creatinine. Then the space needed to run the facility, which will include a consulting rooms, resting rooms, record units, transfusion center, a day hospitalization, a day ward where we can treat a patient in a day and allow the patient to go home. And if need be, there can be provision for private ward, and each number for exact number for each gender can be given, probably 2 for each gender. And the system we include the care provision and defined plan, defined business plan for the project. Then the minimum requirements that we need a physician or 2, and preferably hematologists who are specialists in managing sickle cell disease. And the hematologists must accept their responsibility for establishing protocol for care, training, and implementing audit. And they must share in the overall responsibility of the management of the clinic. And they should be comfortable providing evidence-based pain management and should undertake continued professional development and have an established plan for how to cover for absences. So how do we send other things that we required in the minimum the minimum standard? 1 or 2 social workers, patient coordinator, at least 10 dedicated nursing staffs, and this is to allow shifting among the nurses. Then they must have the ability to offer acute and chronic pain management. They should be able to transfuse in the clinic and the side lab, and as I discussed earlier, and timely access to specialist service. Then the feedback from the authority. The proposal will be assessed by some committee of experts and judged for the degree of innovation and impact on sickle cell community. So feedback will be part of the proposal. So the second question, what are the other things needed? The other things needed to establish this sickle cell center includes dialysis unit, dedicated ICU for only sickle cell patients, mental health staff, burial nursing, access to contraceptives and gynecological care, dental care, sickle cell educator, and occupation therapist. Then how do we standardize it to meet with the current 21st century? How we will set a standard and we set a target on the standard of practice in our own facility. We set a mechanism for monitoring and measuring performance. This will be a form of audit, periodic auditing, to be sure that we are delivering what is expected, and we also have a feedback that allows for correction of the mechanism. This is a chart that has just described everything I've said. So to establish a sickle cell facility, a sickle cell center, the required elements are represented in this table, and the essential things are the sickle cell specialist, social workers, patient coordinator or navigator, dedicated nursing staffs, advanced practice providers, pain management plan, transfusion or apheresis, timely access to support and specialist service. Those are the essential requirements. And the optimal requirements are infusion center or day hospital, lead nurse or the clinic manager, mental health staff, transition plan and guidelines, gynecological or access to contraception, and the adjuncts then include the primary care providers, the physical therapists or occupational therapists, sickle cell educators, dedicated clinic space, dental care, and pharmacists. So to set this standard, I would look for a standard of care using an international guideline, and we decide to replicate the same in the facility. We can obtain 70 to 80% of what is in that guideline, and we can also introduce telemedicine to improve care, gene therapy, in vitro diagnosis, and we can also improve further by having electronic medical records. And to access to highly specialized care among sickle cell disease patients, it's a multidisciplinary care, and all patients should have a named contact and a number to phone if needing advice. Protocols to guide management of acute and uncomplicated presentations will be provided, and all patients should be offered regular outpatient review to ensure screening for chronic disease complications like renal complications, and early investigation and treatment. All patients should have access to specialist psychology support also. And like I said earlier, periodic auditing, and this is to maintain standard and to improve care. And this is just an addendum step to clinical auditing: prepare and plan, select standard care, measure performance, improve performance, and sustain performance. Thank you, sir and ma.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amodu, for the beautiful presentation. Okay, so that will take comments and questions from the participants first, and then our teachers will come in. Thank you so much, Dr. Amodu. Dr. Eda is saying, thank you, Chief. Which generic competence does the question address? The advocacy, health education, clinical governance, or clinical audit? All right, Dr. Amodu, over to you.
Okay, the generic competence that is addressed, I think it is more of a clinical audits.
Okay, so I have thanks from Dr. Ogunsola. Well done, Dr. Amodu, for a nice presentation. Thank you, Dr. Amodu, for the excellent presentation from Afolabi Michael. Okay, so there's a hand up. Dr. Asekame, please go ahead.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Dr. Amodu. Thank you, Dr. Ekele, and good morning to our teachers and my colleagues as well. Thank you very much again, Dr. Amodu, for the presentation. I think this is something about clinical governance. more than just clinical audit, because clinical governance encompasses several aspects of a framework that is designed to ensure quality care in hospitals or hospital managements, and to ensure that these hospital managements are accountable to the public for providing and sustaining high quality care. So, and there are several components of it: clinical effectiveness, and clinical audit, risk management, education and training, staff management, and many other parts of it. I think it encompasses several aspects of clinical governance, so I stand to be corrected. I also wanted to just point out that some of the quote unquote practical or logistic aspects of the establishment of a sickle cell center would also have been mentioned, especially one very practical aspect I don't know if I heard is about money. So how will money be released for this sickle cell center to be established? Money, who is going to release the money, who is going to approve it? So those things are part of the establishment of the center. And then when it is up and running, centers don't sustain themselves. Money is also needed for sustaining it. And then also we talking about the staff that are responsible for not just the clinical aspects of the work. I like the fact that you mentioned the psychologist and the other support staff, but then if their equipment to maintain, if they break down, how are they fixed up? How are they, regularly maintained to ensure that they don't even break down? And then even in the day-to-day running of the center, you mentioned the clinical aspects of clinical audits, which is basically comparing structures, processes, and outcomes with internationally recognized standards, or a recognized standard, and then collecting data, and then completing, stating your findings, performing interventions, and then re-auditing, that is to complete the audit cycle. That's okay. But what about quality control? In a sickle cell center, very likely the hematology unit is going to be very active. Many sickle cell patients have stable PCVs. If the lab is giving wrong results and saying a patient's stable PCV is 7, when in fact it is 5, you could be losing patients, or it could affect the quality of care being given to these patients. So processes or structures, I don't know if that's the correct word, must be set up to ensure good quality control in the lab. So if every few months the equipment being used to perform tests should be recalibrated or revalidated. I don't know if I'm using the correct word, to ensure that they're not giving wrong results. Quality control, and I believe it also affects other aspects of both the clinical and non-clinical work. This can be extended to other aspects of the clinical and non-clinical work that will be going on in the sickle cell center. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Ahmad.
Thank you so much, Dr. Asakame, for that add-on. Okay, please, Dr. Sadi, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. I will also talk in line with what Dr. Asakame mentioned, that it's likely discussing about clinical governance, because you are not only looking at assessing what care is being offered, you are looking at a whole project, because this one is a project. And now my contribution is, if you are discussing a project, especially in the case of a hostel setting or probably public service, in case of health service and also public health, then you need to discuss the logic model. It's very important for us to maybe read it and probably get conversant with it. In this logic model, you are looking at the key important features that will usually guide this. And I think there are 4 or 5, if I can remember, and the inputs, then the output, then the processes, then the outcome, and then the impact. I think we may have to, it has been long I read, but I think anytime you're discussing a project, setting out a hospital, or maybe getting a project being done, you need to discuss those 5 important components: the input, the processes, the output, the outcome, and then the impact. It's very important because by the time you take the input, what do you need to put on ground to ensure that your project succeed? So all those, your stuff, very important. Then the processes, the training, the knowledge, the expert services are all part of the processes and achieving, and even training and retraining part of it. Then the output, what will come out immediately? What will come out immediately as you try to offer your services? Then the outcome are the changes from the previous care that's been assessed at that center. So it tends to be a bit medium range output. For output, it's an immediate. What do you expect to see? Are things running well? Are staff coming on time? Are they motivated? Do they, the knowledge they got in the processes, are they applying it right? So at that point, you are not looking at any tangible outcome. You're just looking at things moving. It's something like a business. If you start a business, you may not likely get a profit, but at least you are doing something. Your money is going around. Even though if you are losing, the most important thing is things are working. It's just with time that you're going to make a profit. Then the outcome is usually the changes that are visibly obvious to the people in the system. That outcome. While the impact is the long term, how does this center impact the community and the society? So I think if you're discussing a project or a program, I think this logic model should be applied. That is my thinking. But if you look at it, everything is under clinical governance because they are establishing a system. So I think I will come back is the input, the processes or the activities, the outputs, the outcome, and then the impact on the system. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sani, for that input. Okay, so let me take some comments on the chat. A lot of thanks to you, Dr. Blessing Abade says, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. You should also include facilities for a stem cell transplant. Thank you, Dr. Blessing. Dr. Adebimpe says, thank you. Thanks, Dr. Amodu, for the excellent presentation. The proposed budget and source of funds should also be addressed. Okay, Chief, maybe you add to the slides all these inputs. Dr. Felix Ago says, thank you for the presentation. I think it's advocacy. Okay, I think more of the thought is on clinical governance. Dr. Yaya says, thank you for the beautiful presentation. Needs assessments should be carried out at the beginning. Well-structured administrative and other supportive staff are also important. And then the center should be sited, if possible, at the center of the town. Okay, Dr. Asakama is adding. Thanks, Dr. Sani. Please correct me if I missed one or two. Input, process, output, outcome. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Asakama. Okay. Dr. Sani, is it the old hand?
Okay. The white down.
All right. Okay, so in absence of any other comments or questions, I'll hand over to our teachers. Mark Isabel.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Keller. Dr. Amodu, thank you so much for the presentation. Please, can you go back to the question? Okay. Please, which of the questions was your answer clinical audit again?
Which one of the questions? No, clinical audit will be part of its map under the contents of the proposal.
Okay, Ma, somebody was asking what's the generic competency addressed?
Yes, I take that back, ma. I answered as clinical audit, but I think it's more of clinical governance. But somebody also suggested that it could be advocacy.
Thank you, thank you. Doctor, so thank you so much. Dr. Ekele, over to you.
All right, thank you, ma. Thank you, Saz. Dr. Omodo, please, can you share your slide? Dr. Becky.
Good morning, Dr. Ekele.
Good morning. Please, can have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Can my slide be seen?
I can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. So good morning to our teachers, facilitators, and colleagues. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'll be presenting practice question 3, and the question is as follows. Clinical trial on antihypertensive after preclinical trials. On preclinical trial, the drug was found to be safe. Discuss the phases of clinical trial. Please remember to talk about pros and cons of each. What is the next phase of trial for this study? What are the factors to consider when choosing a study design? Give two study design clinical trial and the advantage of one over the other. So clinical trial is a biomedical or medical research study that is carried out in human participants using a structured protocol to assess experimental drugs, interventions, diagnostic procedures. It's essential in determining whether new treatments or interventions are safe or effective before they are approved for the general use. So the first question asks, what are the phases of clinical trial? So there are 4 phases, phase 1 to 4. So phase 1 is phase 1 clinical trial, which assesses safety. So more like we could call it the safety phase. So it evaluates safety, the drug safety, and also looks at the safe dosage range and also side effects. It involves small number, often less than 100 participants. And the advantage is that it gives information on drug safety and dosage range. However, because of the small number, small sample size, major side effects or a good number of side effects may not be accounted for, and it also does not give information on efficacy. So phase 2 trial, this phase 2 trial looks at the efficacy of the drug and also looks at the pharmacokinetics, further information on pharmacokinetics of the drug, so including safety. And it involves larger number than in phase 1, about 100 to 300 participants. So it has the advantage of giving information on drug efficacy, on the drug's effectiveness and other pharmacokinetic properties. However, though it's larger than phase 1, the sample size is also relatively small and may not be generalizable. The data may not be generalizable. It's more costly than the phase 1 trial. So phase 3 trial, so this confirms the drug effectiveness, monitors side effects, and it compares the treatment or intervention to already existing treatments or intervention, and it's used in larger groups of hundreds to thousands. So the comparison here is the randomization. So you often involves having a control group where you randomize the participants into the intervention group or treatment group and the control group. Following the trial, the completion of this trial, the sponsors, the researchers go ahead for a new drug application review by the FDA, or in our environment, NAFDAC. And this FDA evaluates the trial, and then the trial and even the manufacturing process of the drug, or if it's intervention, they look at all the processes of the intervention or procedure. And then when they approve it, they give approval for post-market, for approval for market use, and following which the post-market survey will be done, which would be the phase 4 trial. So data in this trial, in this phase, gives more information on drug effectiveness and safety. More information on drug safety and effectiveness, and involves larger participants, and thus the info data can be generalizable as compared to the other phases. And regulatory agencies are needed for approval following the completion of this trial. However, it's expensive, time-consuming, and it's more complex because this randomization is not, when you have thousands of persons or participants. Doing this randomization is a bit complex and extensive, and even the monitoring is also extensive. So the phase 4 trial, which is the post-marketing surveillance, this follows after the approval by the drug regulatory agency, and it focuses on looking at more side effects, often or common or rare or potentially serious adverse effects, and then it's done in the general population, and also looks at other features like the more benefits and more indications that may be picked during the course of this post-marketing survey. So the advantage is that or common side effects that were not seen in the other phases can be picked, and then it looks at the drug effectiveness, efficacy, safety in the real world setting. However, the fact that or common side effects or adverse effects can be picked can lead to the drug withdrawal, and that's one disadvantage. And then challenges in maintaining the follow of this post-marketing survey can be something of concern. Okay, then so this is a slide just summarizing the phases. Notably here is that before the clinical trial, you have the preclinical phase, which involves evaluating drug safety and the pharmacokinetic properties in tissues or animal studies, which the question already stated that has been done. So going to the next question, what is the next phase of what's the next phase of trial? Sorry, I'm not saying the question. So the next phase would be phase 1 trial. So like I said, the question stated that the trial that's already been antihypertensive safety has already been done in the preclinical phase. So the next phase would be phase 1 trial. This is to evaluate the safety and the pharmacokinetics in human participants. So, and following which you have the phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 trial. So what are the factors to consider in choosing study design? These factors include study objectives. This often will follow following the research questions that are to be answered. So if, for example, you want to look at the effectiveness, for example, is lisinopril effective in controlling blood pressure more than maybe another medication, another antihypertensive? This question would be best answered by a clinical trial study design. the number, well, for example, if you want to do, you want to look at prevalence, so what number of persons are coming down, what number of young individuals are coming down with hypertension before the age 30, an observational study or a cross-sectional study would be best in answering that. So that's where the study objective and making your research question comes in. Then the number and characteristics of treatment to be compared. So if your treatment or intervention for interventional study, if the study involves just comparing two treatment or procedures, using a clinical trial, a randomized clinical trial would be effective. But if you are looking at more than two treatments, study design like a crossover factorial study design would be more appropriate. So the time frame. So if you are looking at features that are uncommon, study design like a case control, where you just look at the data already recorded, maybe more stable as compared to you want to look at what happens when you maybe the effect of antihypertensive on renal function. A prospective study would be more appropriate. So other factors include the characteristics of disease, just like what I explained. Is it uncommon? Is it rare or not? The time, cost, and duration, ethical consideration, cost and logistics. So if the project or the research would be very costly, research study like randomized control trial may not be the best. Studies design. What are the study designs for clinical trial? Say mention two study design for clinical trial. So include among, this is not limited to this, randomized clinical trial, non-randomized, observational, parallel group design, crossover clinical trial, factorial clinical trial, cluster randomized clinical trial. So the randomized clinical trial, this involves randomly assigning participants into two groups. So the intervention group and the control groups. So this randomization is very important in reducing bias in studies. Then the own control group, where you don't have a control arm, and often randomization is not done in the own control group, but there's high risk of bias in this study design. They have the crossover. This comes in when you are looking at more intervention or treatment. So you have you want to compare maybe crossover. Yes, when you are looking at more than two intervention or treatment. So for example, you want to compare a drug. You are comparing two treatment or more in a particular participant. So for example, you want to compare lisinopril effectiveness and then that of spironolactone. So you give the lisinopril, and after a period, the washout time, maybe like 6 or 12 months, you give them spironolactone and look at the effectiveness in that individual. So issues of matching and all that would not be there. Then factorial study. This involves when you use multiple intervention and you randomize participants into various treatment group. So for example, you want to assess the combined and individual effects of two different antihypertensive medication. Then others include the parallel group design. So this involves randomly assigning one or two groups, with each group receiving a different treatment. So you have a group, maybe like for example, you have 3 groups. You want to look at lisinopril, spironolactone, and beta blocker. So you have different groups and you give them different these 3 antihypertensive, and look at the effectiveness and efficacy of these drugs. The observational often comes in when randomized control trial is not feasible, and partly because of cost. So you want to look at the long-term effect of maybe a treatment in the research. And so, for example, the effectiveness of lisinopril, the effect of lisinopril on renal function. So you just do an observational study over a period of time instead of doing randomized control trial. So these are some of them. Thank you very much for listening. I want to appreciate Dr. Ede Ifoma, whose previous presentation was of help. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Becky, for that lucid presentation. So now we'll take questions and comments from the chat. Questions and comments from the participants first. If you'd like to make a comment, you can raise your electronic hand. And then let's keep the thanks coming on the chat too. Thank you so much, Dr. Becky. Okay, although you say a nice presentation. Okay, so I can't get any comments on the chat. I don't have any comments on the chat. It's almost time. So because of that, I think I want to go to you. Our time is almost up.
Okay, Dr. Ada asked a question in the comment. Dr. Ada, why didn't you take your hand up and ask the question?
Okay. Dr. Adobe says, thank you for your presentation. Kindly shed more light on the crossover group. Dr. Becky.
Okay, thank you for the question. So for the crossover group, so this evaluates treatment or intervention over a period. So in same individual or same participant, you look at more than one intervention or treatment, and you give a period of time between which you evaluate the treatment or intervention. So if you want to for example, if you want to evaluate lisinopril and spironolactone, how they control hypertension. So you give lisinopril, give a washout time, like maybe like 6 months or less or more. Then you give spironolactone and look at how they control the blood pressure in that same participant. So unlike what you get in randomized control trial, you have a control group and you have an interventional group, different participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief, for your explanation. Sorry, I'm just talking. I didn't see where to raise my hand. And thank you, Chief Christabel. Sorry, I sometimes prefer typing. My study is also on randomized control trials, so some of the terminologies are confusing and they keep saying you have to know everything about your kind of research before you go for the exam. So another question I wanted to ask our chiefs is, I don't know if anybody can help us, help me explain the intention to treat and per protocol aspect of research control trials. Thank you, my chiefs. Thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually not familiar with those terms.
Hello.
Chief Emeka, go ahead, sir.
This who asked that question.
Dr. Adobe Obiefinasta.
You are doing a randomized control trial.
Yes, sir, just an intervention in asthma, not really giving drugs or giving any, I don't know, medication, more like a plan, treatment plan, a written treatment plan, then I follow them up.
Okay. Because I was getting scared, I would have asked you what bank you robbed to get money. Okay. Yes. So intention to treat is when you analyze all recruited patients, even the ones that you had to rule out, people that fell out of your study. So during your analysis, you analyze everyone. That's so when you are recruiting anybody, your intention is to treat all of them. So they'll all be analyzed. So it's a bit different from the what's the other one again? The other one where
Protocol, sir.
a protocol where you can remove some that maybe didn't meet some of your criteria, some that fell out, or some that did not turn up, you know. So those ones you can remove them and they analyze the rest. So that's the difference that I remember between them. I don't know if someone else has something more, but I think that's the major difference.
Chief Remigus, so you will have to stop the class. That's why I usually appeal to everyone. Saturdays, come, everything dissertation. Come and ask your questions. Somebody might present you something that you are doing. So you come, learn from that person. Especially if you're not going for exam that time. Learn from that person's mistake, learn from the comment attending the person. So you also take the same thing back to your work. So
and ask your questions, any question.
Exactly. Yes, Saturday.
About
If
your
I
work.
ask my friend, I'm sure she already comes around the Saturday. But it's fine. We just encourage you to just try. Keep trying. Go ahead. Because Saturdays is day dedicated for everything research. Because of time, although I want to answer more of your questions, we'll have to close the class now. So, but other, thank you. Please, you can reach out to Chief Remigus are quite good with this anything research. Are very good at it. Can reach out to them privately and also chat them on if you have any more.
Thank you, Ma.